Kirk Douglas lived for 103 years, becoming one of Hollywood's most famous and successful actors, earning millions during his career. His son, Michael Douglas, became even wealthier, building a fortune of around $300 million. Despite all this wealth and fame, when Kirk Douglas passed away, there was a shocking surprise in his will. Michael's name was not included. Instead, $50 million of Kirk's fortune went to people outside the family, leaving many stunned. The entertainment world buzzed with rumors about family arguments, secret fights, and old grudges. But the real reason Kirk had chosen to exclude his children had nothing to do with anger or resentment. Michael eventually discovered a private letter from his father that explained everything. The truth behind Kirk Douglas's surprising decisions about his inheritance is remarkable and unexpected, showing a depth of thought that few ever saw. Kirk Douglas was born Isa Danielovich on December 9, 1916, in a small, simple house at 46 Eagle Street in Amsterdam, New York. His parents were immigrants who had fled from the villages of Shavici and Belarus. They came to America hoping to escape the violence, persecution, and poverty they had experienced. Their journey was filled with fear, and they arrived in the United States with nothing except hope for a better future. However, life in America was far from easy. The family lived in extreme poverty. Their small house had no running water, no proper bathroom, and barely enough space for the family. His father, Harry, would gather rags, scrap metal, and anything he could find on Saturdays to sell for just a few cents. His mother, Fina, tried to feed 7 children with one small stove, making food stretch as far as it could. Milk was a rare luxury, and bread had to be divided carefully so no one went without. The children often had to share clothes, beds, and even hunger itself. From an early age, Kirk, who was called Isa at the time, saw the harsh realities of life. He grew up speaking Yiddish, listening to his parents argue constantly about money, and watching his father spend what little money they had on alcohol. By the age of 5, he was already working, selling snacks and newspapers to mill workers for as little as a nickel. By the time he reached adulthood, he had held more than 40 small jobs, and yet, he often went to bed hungry. Life in that house was crowded, noisy, and tense. 6 sisters shared every corner of the small home, and his father's temper made the atmosphere unpredictable and frightening. Sometimes Harry would disappear for weeks, leaving Fina to manage feeding and caring for all 7 children with almost nothing. Young Isa felt trapped and suffocated. He later admitted that he longed to escape and that the shame and tension at home motivated him to dream bigger than any boy in his small town had dared to. He was determined to create a life far removed from the poverty and fear of his childhood. Kirk Douglas's first taste of performing came unexpectedly in kindergarten. He recited a poem called The Red Robin of Spring, and the applause he received ignited a spark within him. He discovered a love for performing that stayed with him throughout his life. In high school, he continued acting in school plays, even when classmates mocked him for his accent and immigrant name. Teachers told him he did not fit the typical mold of an actor, but he refused to let their comments discourage him. He was determined to pursue his dreams, no matter what obstacles arose. By the time he graduated in 1934, he was certain he wanted to study drama. Unfortunately, his family could not afford college tuition, and Kirk had no money to pay for it himself. Undeterred, he hitchhiked over 160 miles to St. Lawrence University with only $163 in his pocket, determined to find a way to make his education possible. He convinced the university to accept him and found ways to survive through his college years. He worked as a janitor for $1 a night, cleaned classrooms, begged meals from staff, and lived on almost nothing. Despite these hardships, he excelled. He became undefeated as a student wrestler and even served as student body president by 1938, a rare accomplishment for a Jewish immigrant in that town. He graduated in 1939 with a degree in English, promising himself that he would always help those who struggled financially, just as he once had. After college, he attended the American Academy of Dramatic Arts from 1939 to 1941. At this point, he decided to reinvent himself. Isa Danielovich became Kirk Douglas, a name inspired by a relative he once saw in a phone book. He began performing in radio shows and small theater productions, but doors were often closed to him simply because he was Jewish. Fraternities refused to accept him, and casting directors dismissed him without giving reasons. One Broadway role rejected him purely because of his heritage, a humiliation that left a lasting mark. He vowed never to let anyone else limit him or dictate his future. During these years, Kirk worked in traveling carnivals as a wrestler under the name Izzy the Strong, earning $50 per night for grueling matches that often left him with a broken nose or bruises. He used this money to pay for acting classes, learning early on how much he was willing to endure for his dreams. In 1940, he found work as a soda jerk at the St. James Theatre, earning only $30 a week. Yet, he spent his breaks watching rehearsals, determined to someday be on stage himself. His first big Broadway audition ended in humiliation. He forgot his lines, was booed by the audience, and left in shame. Many would have quit, but Kirk refused to allow embarrassment to stop him. He pushed forward, determined to make a name for himself. At the same time, he experienced the social pressures of dating. He dated Betty Persk, the sister of Lauren Beale, whose family was wealthy. Kirk felt acutely aware of his own poverty during these moments. Even something as simple as a $2 meal made him feel inferior. He ended the relationship, vowing never to rely on anyone else for survival. In 1941, Kirk Douglas enlisted in the United States Navy, serving as a sub-lieutenant on the USS PC-1139, a submarine chaser that saw heavy action in the Pacific during World War II. In June 1944, his ship was attacked by a Japanese torpedo bomber. 16 of his crew members were killed instantly in the blast. Kirk was thrown by the explosion, suffered a serious abdominal injury, and was left with shrapnel wounds that never fully healed. He also contracted malaria and was discharged in 1945, carrying the physical and emotional scars of the attack. The memories of losing friends and seeing bodies float in the sea stayed with him for life. This traumatic experience added depth and intensity to the characters he later portrayed on stage and screen. Back in New York, Kirk Douglas resumed his acting career in 1945. His first Broadway role paid only $7 a week, but he continued to persevere. Every setback and rejection became fuel for his ambition. He refused to let his humble beginnings define his future. As he climbed the ladder of success in Hollywood, Kirk Douglas faced obstacles at every turn. Studios often typecast actors or refused to hire him because of his ethnicity. However, he never gave up, working tirelessly in films, radio, and theater. Eventually, his dedication paid off, and he became one of the most respected and successful actors of his time. His roles were known for their intensity, realism, and emotional depth, drawing from the struggles and hardships he endured in his youth. Kirk's personal life was equally complex. He married, raised children, and worked tirelessly to build a legacy. His son, Michael, followed in his footsteps, becoming a successful actor and producer in his own right. Despite the family wealth, Kirk's decision to leave $50 million to people outside the family shocked the public and ignited rumors about hidden conflicts. Yet, the truth revealed in his final letter to Michael showed that his decisions were not born of anger or bitterness but from careful thought and a desire to teach a lesson about life, money, and values. Kirk Douglas's life story demonstrates resilience, ambition, and the power of perseverance. From a boy living in poverty and hunger, dealing with a difficult father and a crowded household, he transformed himself into a Hollywood legend. He endured physical pain, social prejudice, and personal struggles, all while keeping his eyes on his goals. His determination to escape the limits imposed by his circumstances shaped the man he became, and his legacy continues through the work of his children and the countless lives he inspired. From his humble beginnings in a tiny house in New York, through countless struggles and near defeats, Kirk Douglas showed that perseverance, hard work, and self-belief could overcome even the harshest conditions. Every job he took, every rejection he faced, and every injury he suffered shaped him into someone extraordinary. He never let shame, poverty, or societal prejudice define his life. His story is one of courage, ambition, and a relentless pursuit of dreams, proving that the human spirit can triumph over adversity when fueled by determination and resilience. Even in his later years, Kirk remained committed to helping others and supporting those in need. He never forgot the struggles of his youth and used his influence to provide opportunities for people who might otherwise have been overlooked. His decision to distribute part of his fortune to strangers rather than family was not cruel. It was consistent with a lifetime of valuing effort, resilience, and integrity over entitlement. He believed that wealth should serve a purpose beyond comfort, teaching lessons about responsibility, compassion, and the power of giving. Kirk Douglas's life was a remarkable journey from hardship to triumph. He endured unimaginable challenges, from the crushing weight of poverty to the horrors of war, and yet he built a life that became legendary. His determination, creativity, and dedication not only earned him fame and fortune but also shaped his character and influenced generations. Even the controversies surrounding his will reflect his philosophy of life, showing that he was never motivated by anger or revenge but by deeper principles and a desire to inspire. Kirk's legacy is not only in the films he made or the wealth he amassed but also in the lessons he left behind. His story teaches that success is born from resilience, that suffering can forge strength, and that true accomplishment comes from perseverance and courage. His son, Michael Douglas, and others who followed in his footsteps carry this legacy forward, proving that the impact of one person's determination and vision can last far beyond a single lifetime. Kirk Douglas's life reminds us that no matter where we begin, with hard work, courage, and a refusal to accept limitations, we can achieve extraordinary things. From a boy in a cramped, poor home to a global Hollywood icon, his story is a testament to human potential, the power of dreams, and the enduring impact of a life lived with purpose. Even in death, his choices reflected the wisdom, thoughtfulness, and values that defined him. His influence, both in the world of entertainment and in the lives of those he touched, continues to be felt, inspiring future generations to rise above challenges, pursue their dreams, and leave a meaningful legacy. Kirk Douglas's rise to stardom was far from easy. After struggling for years, living in a tiny flop house room that cost him just $5 a month, he worked long hours waiting tables just to survive. He even taught dramatics to children to make enough money for rent. Every day was a struggle, and nothing in his life came easily. Yet, persistence brought him opportunities. Lauren Beale, who had supported him before, recommended him for a role in The Strange Love of Martha Ivius. In 1946, director Halb Wallace saw Kirk perform and hired him. When the film premiered in London that June, and then in New York on July 25, critics immediately noticed him. Though it was a small supporting role, Kirk turned it into a performance so commanding that it changed his career path almost overnight. He had a rare ability to take minor parts and infuse them with power, capturing everyone's attention. In 1947, Kirk played Whit Sterling in Out of the Past, a character so cunning and cold that it reshaped Hollywood's perception of him. On set, he refused to let producers control every decision. His insistence on independence became a hallmark of his career. That same year, he appeared in I Walk Alone alongside Burt Lancaster. Their off-screen rivalry became legendary. Kirk demanded equal billing, and the argument that followed sparked a feud lasting nearly 2 decades. The tension between them, however, made their scenes more electric, and audiences loved the palpable energy on screen. Douglas's true breakthrough came in 1949 with Champion. Determined to portray a boxer authentically, he trained with real fighters, endured real punches, and even broke 3 ribs during filming. Production had to pause temporarily, but he returned to set insisting the work continue, proving his dedication. The film opened on April 9, 1949, and earned him his first Academy Award nomination. Before filming, he even underwent plastic surgery on his nose and had the crew meticulously choreograph each punch to protect it. Champion made him a star. Off-screen, conflicts continued. Arthur Kennedy, his co-star, accused him of stealing scenes and came close to physical confrontation. Douglas's drive was intense and contagious, exhausting to those around him, but it solidified his status as someone Hollywood could not ignore. In 1950, Kirk took on Young Man with a Horn. He immersed himself in trumpet training, determined to make his performance believable. His dedication led to constant clashes with director Michael Curtis. Douglas often improvised solos, extended shooting schedules, and even got fired for a day. Still, his commitment gave the film an emotional depth that audiences felt. That same year, He returned to Broadway in The Glass Menagerie, portraying a failed poet reminiscent of the boy he once was. Critics praised his performance, but Kirk walked away from a Tony nomination to focus on film, which upset theater purists but drew him closer to Hollywood, where he could fully shape his career. In 1951, Douglas starred in Ace in the Hole, playing a ruthless reporter who manipulates tragedy for sensational headlines. The film was so dark and controversial that Paramount pulled it from wide release. Audiences did not understand it at the time, but decades later, critics hailed it as a masterpiece. Kirk had created one of the boldest characters in early American cinema, and the controversy only added to his legend. In 1952, he played Jonathan Shields in The Bad and the Beautiful. He studied real Hollywood moguls who wielded power with fear and control and applied that knowledge to his role. Kirk pushed himself into the character so fully that the line between acting and reality blurred. On set, he would intentionally hold back cues, leaving co-stars hanging to provoke authentic reactions for the camera. Director Vincent Minnelli admitted that this tension made the film electric. Some actors disliked the mind games, but Kirk did not care. He had grown up watching powerful men manipulate others, and he channeled that experience into Shields. The film won 5 Oscars and became a sharp critique of Hollywood's way of celebrating people while simultaneously destroying them. Douglas understood that world better than anyone, which is why his performance felt so real and cutting. 2 years later, Kirk faced danger in an entirely different way. On the set of 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea in 1954, he nearly drowned during a scene with a giant animatronic squid. The machine jammed and wrapped around him, trapping him underwater. Crew members rushed in to save him, and production shut down for several days. Despite the incident, Douglas maintained a sense of humor, joking about Disney's effects, calling the squid fish food, and even improvising lines in the script that referenced the accident. Scenes had to be reshot repeatedly, but his calm and professionalism kept the production moving. When the film finally released, it earned over $28 million, which would be around $280 million today. The danger he faced on set lent authenticity to his on-screen heroism, making audiences feel the tension as if it were real. In 1956, Kirk took on a role that tested his limits physically and emotionally. For Lust for Life, in which he portrayed Vincent van Gogh, he starved himself until he lost 20 pounds. He painted between takes, carried a sketchbook everywhere, and immersed himself in the character's loneliness and suffering. People on set whispered that he had become Van Gogh himself. Director Vincent Minnelli said he had transformed completely into the character. Co-stars noted his tension, paranoia, and moments of isolation in his trailer for hours at a time. After filming, Kirk required therapy to regain his sense of self. Yet, the transformation earned him his 3rd Academy Award nomination and contributed to the film's success, which earned over $5 million at the time, around $50 million in today's money. Audiences and critics could feel the pain in every frame because it was his pain too, drawn from his own intensity and dedication. In 1957, Kirk gave Stanley Kubrick one of the boldest performances of his career in Paths of Glory. His character, Colonel Dax, delivers a furious, unscripted speech that Kubrick allowed because he recognized the fire inside Douglas. Kirk drew upon his wartime experiences and the injustices he had witnessed as a young soldier to fuel the scene. The emotion and intensity were so raw that France banned the film until 1975. His ability to channel real-life experiences into performance created moments of cinema that were unforgettable and powerful, leaving audiences and critics alike in awe. Kirk Douglas's career was marked by relentless ambition, physical and emotional dedication, and a refusal to be limited by circumstance or society. From struggling in flop houses, waiting tables, and teaching children to pay rent, to enduring injuries on set, dangerous stunts, and emotional extremes for his craft, he transformed every challenge into an opportunity. He brought authenticity, intensity, and fearlessness to every role, making himself indispensable in Hollywood and creating characters that remain legendary. Every fight, accident, and moment of tension contributed to a body of work defined by boldness, daring, and a profound understanding of human emotion. His journey illustrates the lengths one can go to achieve greatness and the sacrifices required to leave a lasting mark on the world. Kirk Douglas's career was defined not just by talent but by courage, persistence, and a willingness to push himself beyond limits. On the set of Paths of Glory, Kubrick demanded endless takes to extract absolute truth from the actors, and Douglas gave him everything he had. The famous speech he delivered in that film is still studied today because it doesn't feel like an actor reading lines, it feels like a man speaking from his very soul. Later that same year, he reunited with Burt Lancaster for Gunfight at the OK Corral, playing Doc Holliday with a sharp, dangerous edge. He chain-smoked real cigars to stay in character, coughing up blood at times, but the authenticity came through on screen. Behind the scenes, tensions ran high. Douglas, Lancaster, and producer John Houseman argued constantly over profits, threatening to halt production. Douglas later admitted that the cigars helped him manage stress and maintain his focus amidst the constant disputes. Despite the conflicts, the film earned over $11 million, nearly $110 million in today's money, though the feud with Lancaster strained their friendship for years. As the 1960s began, Douglas faced new challenges, this time outside of fights with co-stars. In 1955, he established Brina Productions, a bold move that changed Hollywood. When he hired Dalton Trumbo to write Spartacus in 1960, he made a courageous decision. Trumbo had been blacklisted and jailed for his political beliefs and had spent years writing under false names. Douglas openly credited Trumbo, insisting his real name appear in the film's credits, despite warnings that this choice could destroy his career. Many feared he would be blacklisted as well, but he ignored them. His stand helped end the blacklist by 1961 and restored the careers of many silenced artists. Douglas later wrote about the threats he had faced and the fear that lingered, but he also expressed immense pride for standing up for what was right. Spartacus became a symbol of courage even before audiences saw the film. Douglas's bravery extended to physical risks on set. During the famous arena revolt scene in Spartacus, 8,000 extras were clad in full Roman armor. Chaos erupted when a chariot stunt went wrong, and Douglas was thrown, breaking his jaw. Refusing painkillers that might dull his focus, he iced his face, clenched his teeth, and completed the scene before heading to the hospital. The movie went on to win 4 Oscars, and Douglas's injury became part of the legend surrounding the film. His creative clashes with Kubrick were equally legendary. During Spartacus, the two men fought so fiercely that Douglas briefly fired Kubrick and brought in another director. Soon after, realizing the film needed Kubrick's vision, he rehired him. Kubrick demanded reshoots, and Douglas, recognizing both his genius and his difficulty, called him a genius and impossible in the same breath. Their clashes became part of the myth of the movie, illustrating how two strong, uncompromising minds could collide and still create something unforgettable. Before Spartacus, Douglas endured other physical challenges. While filming The Vikings in 1958, he worked in freezing Norwegian fjords, diving into icy water repeatedly. He eventually caught pneumonia, delaying production and extending the shooting schedule by a month, costing an extra $1 million. At one point, the local crew went on strike, demanding higher pay, while Douglas continued to recover from illness. Despite the hardships, the movie became famous for its sweeping landscapes and Douglas's relentless realism, though the toll on his body lasted for years. In 1959, while filming The Devil's Disciple, disaster struck when a bombed-out church set collapsed, trapping extras under falling beams. Douglas, nearby, immediately took control. He directed people to safety, helped pull survivors from the rubble, and prevented what could have been a tragedy. The incident cemented his reputation not only as a talented actor but also as a natural leader under pressure. This sense of justice and responsibility influenced many of his roles, giving his characters a moral weight and authority. In 1964, Douglas starred in 7 Days in May, playing a military officer who uncovers a coup. The story was risky in the midst of the Cold War, and Douglas insisted on including dialogue about civil rights that was not in the original script. Director John Frankenheimer wanted to keep the content safe, but Douglas refused. He wanted his character to stand for something real. Their disagreements were intense and nearly derailed production, but the final film emerged as one of the most important political thrillers of the era, a testament to Douglas's commitment to truth and integrity in his work. In 1966, Douglas faced a personal battle while filming The Brotherhood in Sicily. A helicopter he was riding in crashed, fracturing his vertebrae. He spent months recovering, and the injury caused him pain for the rest of his life. The accident led him to shift away from heavy action roles and focus more on producing and humanitarian work. He later explained that the crash reminded him to value life beyond fame and fortune. Even as he aged, Douglas refused to slow down. In 1986, at the age of 69, he reunited with Burt Lancaster for Tough Guys. He performed a dangerous stunt, jumping off a moving train, and dislocated his shoulder. Despite doctors urging him to stop, he completed the scene. The stunt symbolized who he was at heart, a man who never backed down from a challenge, even when his body was warning him to slow down. This was his last movie with Lancaster, giving the stunt a poignant layer of meaning, a reflection of a lifetime of determination and courage. In 1991, Douglas appeared in The Secret, a film exploring aging and infidelity, with echoes of his own life experiences. Then, in 1996, he suffered a stroke that paralyzed half his face and damaged his speech. Many assumed his acting career was over. Douglas refused to accept this limitation. He spent months relearning how to speak, determined to continue working. By 1999, he appeared in Diamonds with his grandchildren, incorporating his impaired speech into his character. Audiences were moved because his performance was authentic and real. His final film, It Runs in the Family, released in 2003, represented a full-circle moment. Acting alongside his son and grandson, he did not hide his hearing loss but instead used it as part of his performance. The film showcased his warmth, humor, and humanity, turning physical limitations into moments of charm and connection. Critics praised the film because it was unpolished, honest, and true to life, reflecting the essence of Kirk Douglas himself. Throughout his life, Douglas demonstrated unmatched courage, both on and off screen. From enduring physical danger in icy waters, fiery stunts, and helicopter crashes to pushing creative boundaries, standing against blacklists, and insisting on authenticity, he left a legacy of fearlessness, integrity, and determination. He transformed every challenge into an opportunity to grow, inspire, and leave a lasting impact. His life and career showed that true greatness comes not from avoiding risk but from embracing it, and that the mark of a true artist is the ability to blend personal experience with performance to create something timeless and unforgettable. Kirk Douglas was a man who turned every danger, triumph, heartbreak, and recovery into a story worth telling. He married young, full of energy and fire, but his life rarely stayed calm for long. In 1943, he married Diana Dill, and for a brief moment, it seemed he had found stability. They had 2 sons, Michael in 1944 and Joel in 1947, creating what appeared to be a picture-perfect Hollywood family. Behind closed doors, however, things were far from peaceful. Kirk was chasing fame and women, admitting in his 1988 memoir that he had affairs almost every night. Diana discovered the truth early on and tried to hold the marriage together, but by 1951, the cracks were too deep, and their marriage ended. Kirk said he was devastated, but the emotional damage had already affected the family. Michael later admitted feeling abandoned as a child. Despite the divorce, Kirk and Diana remained friendly, though the emotional scars never fully healed, and the breakup set a pattern Kirk struggled with for decades. In the summer of 1955, a dark chapter unfolded involving Natalie Wood, who was only 16 or 17 at the time. Her mother arranged a private screening with Kirk at the Chateau Marmorne, believing it would help her daughter's career. Instead, Natalie came home shaken. In her sister Lana's 2021 memoir, she revealed that Natalie whispered she had been hurt by Kirk. The truth was never made public during Natalie's lifetime, as the family stayed silent to protect her career. Kirk never addressed the story before his death in 2020, and the truth remains private, one of Hollywood's most whispered and darkly remembered moments. Kirk's second marriage began in 1954 when he wed Anne Bidens, a sharp Belgian publicist who understood the world in ways Diana never had. They had 2 sons, Peter in 1955 and Eric in 1958. Anne was aware of Kirk's affairs and accepted that part of him, understanding that expecting total fidelity in Hollywood was unrealistic. Despite challenges, she remained loyal, and their marriage lasted 63 years, until his death in 2020. Their life together included moments of incredible fortune and near disaster, such as the time and convinced him not to board a private plane that later crashed, killing everyone aboard. She also helped manage his finances during career slumps, ensuring stability when his professional life wavered. Their marriage became a partnership built on honesty, endurance, and survival. Kirk's relationship with Michael was complex. He helped launch Michael's career with the 1969 film Hail Hero, yet the two often remained emotionally distant. Michael spent years feeling overlooked by his father. However, during Michael's battle with cancer in 1992, the fear of loss brought them closer. When Kirk passed away in 2020, most of his $61 million fortune went to charity instead of his children. The Douglas Foundation received the majority of the money. Michael, who had a net worth of $300 million, publicly stated that he respected his father's choice and understood the mission behind it. Their bond had healed long before the will was revealed, proving that love and understanding mattered more than money. The Douglas family faced ongoing personal tragedy. Eric Douglas, Kirk's youngest son, struggled with addiction for years. In 2000, he overdosed and spent 8 days in a coma. Despite attending 20 rehab centers, his struggles persisted. On July 6, 2004, Eric was found dead in his New York apartment at the age of 46, with alcohol, tranquilizers, and painkillers in his system. Kirk later admitted that he blamed himself for not being present during Eric's youth. The loss devastated the family and inspired Kirk to speak publicly about addiction, hoping his experiences might save others. Despite personal chaos, Kirk remained dedicated to giving back. In 1964, he and Ann established the Douglas Foundation to support children growing up in poverty, the same conditions Kirk had endured. By 2020, the foundation had funded over 400 full scholarships at St. Lawrence University, his alma mater, with each scholarship covering up to $200,000 for 4 years. Their goal was simple: to allow hard-working students to attend college without the burden of money holding them back. In 2010, they donated $8 million to expand the program further. Students selected for these scholarships had to demonstrate leadership and potential, and many said the awards changed their lives. Kirk always emphasized that education had been his path out of poverty, and he wanted others to have the same opportunity. Kirk's courage extended far beyond Hollywood. Starting in 1963, he served as a goodwill ambassador. In the 1980s, he began smuggling banned manuscripts out of the Soviet Union, including works by dissidents like Alexander Solzhenitsyn. If he had been caught, he could have been arrested, but he continued his efforts, helping publish books that revealed life under Soviet censorship. This side of Douglas, quiet, courageous, and committed to freedom of expression, was little known but demonstrated the bravery behind his on-screen persona. Even after a stroke in 1996 left him partially paralyzed and struggling to speak, Douglas refused to be silenced. By 2000, he was standing before Congress advocating for stem cell research, believing it could transform medicine for people like him. Though his speech was slow and difficult, it moved lawmakers. The Douglas Foundation raised over $100 million for medical research and charities, supporting studies on Parkinson's disease, spinal injuries, and other conditions. Kirk believed in the power of science to save lives and never wavered in his support. His work earned him numerous honors. In 1981, he received the Presidential Medal of Freedom. In 1985, he became a Chevalier of the French Legion of Honor. At the 2001 AFI Lifetime Achievement event, he urged Hollywood to stop chasing greed and start giving back, a speech that inspired many stars to rethink philanthropy. Awards and recognition were never his true goal. He valued the knowledge that his actions made a real difference in people's lives. Kirk's impact extended to Los Angeles as well. In 2004, he and Ann donated $2.5 million to transform the old Culver Theatre into the Kirk Douglas Theatre, providing a home for new plays, many of which eventually made it to Broadway. The foundation promised to match theatre fundraising, raising nearly $4 million for productions. In 2013, they funded an $8 million renovation of the Douglas Family Early Childhood Center at Sinai Temple, offering low-income families a safe and nurturing environment. These spaces continue to positively affect countless lives every day. When Kirk passed away on February 5, 2020, at the age of 103, the world expected his estate to be divided among his sons. Instead, nearly all of his fortune, $50 million of $61 million, went to the Douglas Foundation. Children's Hospital Los Angeles received $2.3 million for a surgical robot, St. Lawrence University received additional scholarship funding, and community playgrounds and art centers benefited from his generosity. He wanted his wealth to uplift those who had never been given a fair chance. His sons received nothing, yet Michael, Joel, and Peter respected their father's choices. Hollywood and the world were stunned, but Michael silenced rumors by praising his father as a legend, a man who lived with purpose, and someone whose greatest legacy was the countless lives he changed rather than the money he left behind. Kirk Douglas's life was a blend of triumph, tragedy, courage, and generosity. He faced personal and professional battles, physical dangers, family challenges, and societal pressures, yet he never stopped striving for excellence. From his beginnings in poverty to becoming a Hollywood legend, from risking everything for artistic truth to advocating for humanitarian and scientific causes, he transformed both his own life and the lives of others. His story is a testament to resilience, courage, and the enduring power of giving back, leaving a legacy that will be remembered far beyond the silver screen.